Okay. Hello, and welcome to Mobile Publishing 101. My name is Hannah Bassana. I'm a principal product manager with ServiceNow, and the products that I'm over are mobile builders. So these are all the products you use to customize your out-of-the-box mobile app, including mobile app builder, mobile card builder, and then our white labeling product here, mobile publishing. So this is Mobile Publishing 101. I'm going to show you all of the prerequisites, what mobile publishing is, what mobile publishing isn't, the timelines it takes, how to gather the third-party information that you need on the mobile publishing form, and show you some feature that's coming up in November to help you test and distribute your apps. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, what is mobile publishing? Mobile publishing is our, like I said, white labeling or branding tool to create your own corporate mobile branded app. We provide not only corporate branding with an automated branding process and customizable options here, app name, icon, color, splash screen, etc. We also have additional mobile security, distribution options, which I'll go through, and then ongoing app management so that you can focus on branding your app rather than the security or management thereof. So I want to call out how our ServiceNow branded apps differ from our general availability apps, our GA apps. So ServiceNow has the GA mobile clients, which you might be familiar with today, that those app types are Agent and Now Mobile. What that means is we have two apps, Agent and Now Mobile, Requester and Fulfiller personas, on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. So this is something that anybody can download, and you need an instance and instance login in order to use. Should you decide that the ServiceNow branding with our icons, the ServiceNow names on the apps themselves, should you decide that you want to customize that and create your own white labeled app so it looks like your company created this app soup to nuts, you would be using custom branding via mobile publishing. Now, I want to call out some of the differences. The time to deploy with our general availability apps is immediate. We deploy this for you. It's already on the App Store, and we manage all of the updates for you. And there's nothing that a customer needs to do other than customize the internal workflows with mobile app builder and mobile card builder. Versus your custom branded app, it takes 1 to 4 weeks for the branding process to complete, for your app to be ready for testing, for you to test it, and then ultimately distribute to your end users. The testing and distribution is on your own time frame, but it takes 1 to 4 weeks for us to create that branded app for you. So as mentioned, the external branding, so what the app icon, what the app looks like before you log in, is ServiceNow for the GA apps, and it's unique to the customer for our branded apps. You'll notice the internal branding. I wanted to call this out because there's some conflation of the two terms. To brand your app is everything that goes on outside of the login or before the login screen, outside of your customized out-of-the-box workflows. But internally, once you log into the app, you can use mobile themes in both cases to customize what the instance colors are, even the logo on the instance itself, much like you do for a web page. You can do that using either the GA apps or the mobile publishing apps. Something I want to call out, and I'll get into more detail later, is you'll notice we have two app types that you might be familiar with for our two personas, Requester and Fulfiller. So we have our Agent and Now Mobile apps for the GA. And mobile publishing allows you to create a third, fourth, fifth, multiple apps if you have different use cases for them, different audiences. I'll go through the reasoning and use cases behind this, but we call those custom type apps. And so not only do we have Agent and Now Mobile apps that you can wrap with your branding and use your current workflows, we also can create custom type apps. And I'll get into some more detail on that later. Version management. So this is the client number. Right now we're on 18.2 as of September 2024. Next year we'll start moving into the 19s, but the version management for the GA apps is managed by ServiceNow. But that is a manual process for your mobile admin to do. over the lifetime of your mobile app. So if you're using branding, the version management is up to you, which means you could update as often as monthly as ServiceNow does, or you could update as often as yearly if you have really strenuous pen testing processes or challenging distribution with your end users. You can choose how often you update the apps according to your end users' needs. Private distribution. So this is a feature of mobile publishing. We have, there's no option for private distribution with the ServiceNow GA apps, but it is customer managed and something you can do using your custom branded apps. And what that means is we have public distribution, which you can see public App Store management, just like our GA apps, the public Apple App Store, public Google Play Store, the apps are on there and therefore that's public distribution. Mobile publishing apps can be also publicly distributed, but if you want to keep them off the App Store, you want to distribute via your EMM provider, your enterprise mobility providers, that's MAM or MDM solutions, or you want to distribute through the intranet, or just generally for security purposes, don't want the general population to see your app on the app stores. That's where private distribution comes in, and that is exclusive to mobile publishing. And then I mentioned the EMM capabilities, which is same for both GA and branded apps. You can use MAM or MDM. So to dive a little bit further in, what is mobile publishing? Customers can request and implement their company's visual identity. The ServiceNow will build, maintain, and publish the custom branded apps on your preferred method. That's especially the case in private distribution. What I want to call out is while the mobile apps is free for all customers of ServiceNow, all of the out-of-the-box workflows for each of the business units that you're subscribed to, mobile publishing is a paid plugin. It's included in the Enterprise and Pro and App Engine SKUs. So if you have any of those subscription levels at ServiceNow, mobile publishing is included, or you can purchase it a la carte. And what I mean by a la carte is you can add it to your subscription level with ServiceNow. And then you would go to, let's see if I can show you quickly. Yeah, you would go to the ServiceNow store, type in mobile publishing. You see the mobile publishing tile here. And then after you work with your ServiceNow representative to get this subscription level, then you would click the Get button and add this to your instance. Mobile publishing is trued up to all new family ServiceNow family versions. So once you initially add it to your instance, it'll be automatically updated every family release. And then we also have some interim releases between those where you can go to your plugins page and update it as you would for many, many other products at ServiceNow. So customization support include, I've already touched on some of these, but you can customize your app name. So what comes up under your app while your end users are looking at their lock screens or home screens, for example. The app icon, splash screen, so what you see while the instance is loading. Private distribution, we mentioned if you want to keep it off the public stores. Public distribution, if you would like to keep it on, although that's also a GA feature, you can see the asterisk. We support theming, we support mobile device management, MAM and MDM. And then also unique to mobile publishing, you can auto-populate the instance URL during login. So your end users no longer need to type out their ServiceNow instance in order to log in. You can determine a hard-coded instance that the app is built into the app so that when users download this app, for example, that URL will already be preloaded. They hit login and then put in their username and password or whatever SSO login methods you have. And then again, I'll speak more towards this, but the custom type apps. So if you need more than just agent or now mobile, that's also an exclusive publishing feature. I'm going to go into the build process generally here and then do some call outs on our features that some common misconceptions are just things that you should know as you get started in your journey. And then I'll go into the details of the distribution, the process to request your app, to test your app and distribute it. So generally speaking, the build process, the customer would submit a build request with all of the information populated above, plus some more information. ServiceNow builds and tests the custom branded app. Customer would test the branded app as well, make sure all the branding looks the same, make sure the push notifications work, etc. and then the customer to deploy the apps to the employees. So that's the general process. I'll dive in a bit further, but let me first go into some mobile publishing callouts. So timelines. I mentioned before that branded apps take anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks to complete and be ready for testing. So that 1 to 4 weeks isn't just how long you need for the full process. That's how long it takes for Apple and Google and ServiceNow to create your mobile app. This is due to Google and Apple's service level agreement, the SLA to ServiceNow, and is not within control of ServiceNow to speed up. Of those 1 to 4 weeks, ServiceNow probably takes 1 day, and the rest is determined by the third party. We have heard your feedback though, and I know that people wanted some more information on this or to try and expedite it. So again, ServiceNow cannot expedite your app branding. No matter how important you are or how close your go live is, we are beholden to Apple and Google. We cannot speed that up. But what we did do was give some more granular guidance. Where previously we said it was 1 to 2 weeks for Android and 2 to 4 weeks for iOS, the new timeline guidance here is Android only submissions take less than 1 week and sometimes only a few hours. For iOS builds, publicly distributed iOS builds usually take a week, sometimes a day, but usually a week. And privately distributed iOS, this is what takes the longest, takes 2 to 4 weeks. Due to Apple's human review process. So Apple literally will log into your mobile app and make sure it's doing what you say it's doing on the Apple App Store listing. They're trying to make sure you're not disguising the app as something else. So they need to physically log in. We give them an instance. It's not your customer instance. But that's what takes 2 to 4 weeks. And that's, again, the process we cannot speed up. It's good to call out, though, most customers request their iOS and Android builds together, which we suggest. That's best practice. It's easier from a maintenance perspective going forward. But if you're on a tight timeline, it's good to know for joint iOS and Android requests, all builds will be delivered to you at the same time based on the slowest process. So we have some kind of help here if you're on a short timeline. If your company has a go live within weeks, we suggest requesting the Android app first. And that way you can test and approve the branding within a few days and maybe even a few hours. And then you can submit your iOS app. Another way to accelerate timelines is to test the mobile workflows using the GA apps on our public stores while your branding is being built. The GA apps use the exact same internal workflows as your branded app will. So that way, if you've already tested the internal workflows of the app while you're waiting for your branding to come back, once it does, you only need to test the branding, the login flow, should you decide to pre-fill your instance URL, push notifications, and any app store listings for public distribution. So that way you truncate the testing timeline and you're not waiting for the iOS app to be built. You can start using your Android app and ensure everything looks the way you'd like it to expedite your go live. Another call out, custom type apps. So custom branding is not the same as custom type apps. Custom types apps is a new feature. It's still in early availability. So there's going to be, if you want to use this feature, your ServiceNow representative needs to reach out to the mobile publishing team and have a conversation about this. And the reason I say that is custom type apps are usually an edge case. Custom branded apps reflect your branding. Custom type apps are usually an edge case. As I said, ServiceNow has 2 app types to choose from, agent and now mobile. As some of you long-term customers might remember, we used to have a 3rd app, onboarding, but that was deprecated in 2023. So in the use case, if you're already using both types, if you've already branded the agent and now mobile app for two different user groups, and you need a 3rd, 4th, or 5th app, you can look into the custom type app. If you want more flexibility over which apps can reside on an end user's phone concurrently, custom type apps might also be for you. So for example, if you use the GA app and a branded app of the same type, you have the ServiceNow agent app for some user groups and the branded agent app for other user groups, that those apps cannot reside on the same end user's phone. There's conflicts on authentication and push notifications. So you would need to create a custom type app for your branded app rather than a branded agent app. Another use case is a different branded app for each business unit all on one phone. So that's what some of these images show. If you want to take the agent and now mobile app and use all of those workflows all in one app, that can be supported in either the GA or our branded app capability. But if you're already using both and you want to use a third app, or if you want to have custom type apps for specific user personas, if for some reason our role access or our user criteria doesn't segment your workflows the way you want, or, and again, in the most extreme case, you might need 5+ apps, one now mobile, one agent, branded or otherwise, and then custom app types. So that's what custom type apps are. Again, it is not the same as branding. You probably don't need this. But the capabilities are you can support multiple custom type apps on a single device. As mentioned, there aren't any of those push notification or OAuth conflicts. Customers can use the same custom type app across many instances and use many instances on one custom type app. So that's the same capability as our GA apps. And then you can consolidate workflows into one app type. So that's also a GA capability. So you can see where the use case is narrow, more and more narrow as we chat about custom type apps, which is why I say it's usually an edge case. Most people are okay branding the agent or now mobile workflows, plus it's a whole lot less effort. So if you're interested in this, reach out to your ServiceNow representative. They'll reach out to the internal ServiceNow team and we can have a conversation about it. Another thing to call out is isolated instances, on-prem instances, government customers, including GCC, SPP, NSC, etc., could run into challenges because the call out is mobile publishing requires a cloud-connected instance. This is unfortunately non-negotiable. Customers who are on isolated on-prem or self-hosted instance need a second cloud-connected instance to manage their branded apps. This is because mobile publishing must connect to at least 2, but usually 3 external stores. It must connect to the ServiceNow store to send your request, and it must connect to Apple and Google to receive that branding app request. This is not just a one-time connection. This also includes your app updates. So every time you want to increment up your client version to be more secure or uptake some of our new mobile platform features, you need to use this cloud connected instance to do so. And then also push notifications use Apple and Google Store connections to work. So on your isolated or on-prem or often federal instance, you won't be able to use push notifications. Now we have a workaround, and that's, like I said, you would purchase from ServiceNow a second cloud connected instance to initially create and continually update to your latest client versions. And we have a push notification workaround as well. So let's see if we can open up this hyperlink because we have extensive documentation on this as well. What I want to show is this is our ServiceNow community page, so servicenow.com/community. And what mobile publishing has is a getting started FAQ. And on this FAQ, we actually have a question specifically for this saying, can I request mobile publishing app on my subprod, on-prem, self-hosted, isolated environment, GCC, SPP, NSC, etc. So we mentioned the same limitations. And then we say, get more information here. And this document is what talks through the suggested workaround for mobile publishing, as well as workarounds for push notifications. So if you're interested, go ahead and go to the FAQ. And one thing to note is we have 2 FAQs. We have one on getting started and another one's a technical FAQ. So form submissions. Make sure you go to the getting started one, but both are really helpful. I'm largely going to cover everything in the getting started FAQ, but the technical is just one step deeper. Okay, let's get into the process. So mobile publishing process. We resolve all issues around security updates, multiple build challenges, and we help you with store approval process so you can focus on building the apps and not publishing them. We have the call out again that Android builds take anywhere from 1 day to 2 weeks to complete. iOS can take as long as 4 weeks. So that's kind of the truncated version of the detailed SLA I brought you through before. And you'll notice that we have the processes that differ by operating system and distribution type. So the top two are iOS based, the bottom two are Android based, and then it's broken out by public and private. So just generally speaking, for iOS, you would submit a branded app request. Once you get your builds back to test, you would, and ServiceNow would invite your testers, or you would download your XC archive file and sign it and then upload it, which would bring you to Apple Connect for testing. Once you approve the build, depending if it's private, ServiceNow would publish the branded app to your Apple Business Manager account. That's a prerequisite for this process. I'll go through that. And in the public case, you would approve your tested build and then deploy it on Apple's App Store by creating that Apple listing. Android's a little bit more simple, but very much the same. First step is submit your request. If it's a private distribution, ServiceNow will provide you an APK file. And if it's a public distribution, we'll provide you an AAB file. Either way, you would take those files, test them on your Android devices or on an emulator on your computer, and then approve your build, branding, and distribute with your preferred method, either privately off the Google Play Store or publicly on the Google Play Store itself. So I'm going to dive into, and I'm going to demo the public and private differences as well for the exercise. But before we do that, I have some prerequisites. So mobile publishing is very much an integrated product. We rely heavily on Apple and Google's requirements, and we follow those. And as such, we have two different groups of prerequisites based on what distribution method you choose. Both distribution methods need a Firebase account. It generates a few mandatory fields in our request form to tie the app to Google, and so you can test it. But it also helps set up our push notifications for Android. In the private distribution option, I mentioned that we would just send the tested app to Apple Business Manager for you to distribute privately. So Apple Business Manager is required. It's also what generates some more of these mandatory fields on the request form. You'll also need names and emails for your iOS app testers. This can be updated every time you update your client version, but you need to make sure you know who your iOS testers are and ensure those testers have their emails associated with an Apple ID. An Apple Test Flight account is used to test your iOS app, so it's technically not a prerequisite, but it is a requisite for the larger process. And then in public distribution, we have, as mentioned, the Firebase account is the only prerequisite, but the other requisites are also an Apple Connect account to test your iOS app. You'll need a developer account to distribute the app to the public stores, as well as a managed Google Play account to do the same, upload and distribute your Android app. So these are all the pieces of information that you need to gather in order to submit a branding app request. And I'll go ahead and show you how to find those pieces of information for each of the distribution methods. So that brings us into the exercise. This is the, again, Mobile Publishing 24.0 version, which goes out in November 2024. And I'm going to go through each of the configuration options. So the first scenario I'm going to go through is the private app process. And we're going to actually use an MAM vendor as well for this one. So let me show you how to get started. I told you that you need to download mobile publishing from the store. Once you do so, once you hit get and it gets downloaded into your plugins page, you're going to be on your mobile publishing instance or your ServiceNow instance. Go to the all menu and type in publishing. You can see manage mobile publishing apps. And that's what we're going to go ahead and click, which I already have. And it'll bring you to our new mobile publishing homepage. This is different from our previous YouTube video. We've really enhanced this and we're really proud of it. So the first thing you'll see is your recent app requests. You can see all the branded apps that you've ever requested, not necessarily distributed, because again, we don't know if you actually send it to Apple and Google eventually for the public distribution process, but this is any app you've ever requested with ServiceNow. And on this instance, I should call out, if you requested it on a different instance, you'll need to manually migrate your build history over in order to see everything. But it's everything you've ever requested on this instance. We have our watch and learn, which is this YouTube video that you're going to be watching is going to be embedded in the mobile publishing product so that you can access it whenever you're requesting your app and refresh exactly what you need to do. We have some documentation and FAQs here. So mobile publishing product documentation brings you to docs.servicenow.com. And the mobile app and platform community, that's what I showed you, where you can see our mobile publishing FAQs and some getting started resources. If in the event you don't want to go through the full FAQ doc, it is long, we've surfaced some common questions here. How's this different than mobile theming? We've already talked about that on this YouTube video. Theming is what happens after login. Branding is what happens before. Is this the same as white labeling? Yes. How long does it take to build the app? This is the new guidance that we're chatting about. How do I update my app version? I'll bring you through that. Where can I find more FAQs? We mentioned the getting started FAQ as well as the technical FAQ. As if that weren't enough, we've also added to the homepage the prerequisites I brought you through. So this details not only the third-party prerequisites, but any information that you'll need to populate the mandatory fields on the form. So it's a little bit more detailed, but we do break it up by Apple and Google as well. So you can see exactly what you're going to need to populate before you even click into request new app. We also have a brand assets guide. Apple and Google have some different criteria for the branding assets that you use, the icon image, the splash screen image, etc. So we've put those details here as well as the validation within the form itself. Finally, I want to show you, this is the overview tab of mobile publishing. If you click history, this is another way to view your same builds that we have on the homepage here. You can filter a little bit and you can change if in the event you have many that you want to go through. This history page is really helpful. And if I click into any one of these builds, you'll be able to see the request details and all of the information that was populated in order to create this branding. Now, what I want to call out is you notice we have a few different statuses here. We have our complete status. That's where I've already tested and I came back into the mobile publishing app to approve my builds. And you can see these builds are in ready for test. If I click into one of the complete, you can see all the records that I mentioned to download, the iOS testing files, as well as the Android testing file. Those pieces of information are also available here for when it's ready to test, because you need them for testing, but we go ahead and keep them on there should you ever need to download those files again later. Okay. So I'm going to demo the private app process. What I'm going to do is do an Android and iOS build together with a MAM vendor. So the mobile application management vendor that I'm going to show you is InTune, and we'll go ahead and get started. So let's move this out of the way. Grab this. Okay. Now I want to request an app. And what I first notice is I have two apps in ready for test. One is now mobile and the other is an agent app. It's important to call out that there can only be one app of each type in flight. So I won't be able to request another agent app or another now mobile app for as long as one of these two are, or for as long as each of them are in ready for test. So that's, again, we can only have one branded app in flight at once being built and tested. So what I'm going to do is we're going to request a agent app. So I need to go into this agent app that's in ready for test. and I would either reject or approve the build. So if the branding is correct, I would click approve, and if the branding or the login flow is wrong, then we would reject. So I'm going to go ahead and approve just so you can see what it looks like. The approve button in the private distribution process pushes it to Apple Business Manager. So if I hit approve, this is a public app. It won't go to Apple Business Manager. It'll simply let ServiceNow know that you are finished. It will allow you to update the client version after that. And so let's just go ahead and do it. I'm going to hit approve. And great, now you can see the status has changed to accepted. That's going to change to complete once ServiceNow finishes some things in our backend. But what that means is now I have the ability to submit a mobile agent branded app. So let's go ahead and get started. So what you'll notice is our mobile publishing form has changed significantly. Instead of one flat, pretty ugly form, we have different tabs based on who's asking for this information. So basic info and add app details are largely ServiceNow based fields, things that we're asking you. Setup for iOS and setup for Android are things that Apple and Google need. And then the review and submit will show you everything on the form. So let's go through it. Add basic info. I'm just going to go ahead. I can probably just auto populate these. So this is, again, me, Hannah Bassana. Please don't email me. We have your app info. So this is what app type, mobile agent or now mobile. It doesn't matter for our purposes in the demo, but we'll do mobile agent now. The distribution type is either public or private. And as mentioned, we're going to demo the private first. And operating system will be iOS and Android. You can also just do Android or just do iOS. If I were to just do Android, you can see that the setup for iOS tab goes away and vice versa. If I do iOS only, the Android tab goes away. So let's change the operating system to both and hit next. Okay, now it's time to add my app details. What app am I building? We have a short name and a long name. These names must be unique. So in the private distribution process, and in the public distribution process, you need to make sure that your mobile app name isn't already being used. So I would suggest going into each of the app stores and searching for the names that you think you want to use. I'm going to do demo 1. And the long name will be demo 1. Okay. And immediately we see our bundle ID and our package name kind of populate here. This is going to be information we need for Android as well. So this is based on app name and app type selection. So you can see here, com.servicenow.b2b is standard. Demo 1 is my app long name, and the fulfiller app type is what we chose. So again, fulfiller corresponds to mobile agent. Mobile application management. So let's say you want an external vendor to distribute this and manage this app to your end users. You would choose to use mobile application management and then choose one of our 2 supported vendors. We support a lot more MDM vendors than we do MAM. BlackBerry and InTune are the 2 MAM options here. I'm going to pick InTune because Microsoft has introduced a new process. Here we go. And so once I click InTune, you notice the pop-up came up, Microsoft Intra ID admin consent required. This is new as of this year. Anybody who's publishing an app, private or public, Android, and actually this only applies to iOS. So if it's a just Android app, you don't need to worry about this. But Microsoft has now mandated that the Intra ID admin must consent on the Microsoft Intune multi-tenant permissions on behalf of your organization. This is a one-time action. So you do this per app. We have a Learn More link, which will bring you to our ServiceNow documentation for exactly what this mandate is, why it's happening, and then the steps that you need to follow. But this modal actually tells you everything you need as far as the steps go. So in the private distribution process, you need to review permissions and give consent. And I've actually already logged in here. So this should be, give me 1 second. Great. So this is exactly what your mobile admin is going to see for private distribution. You need to give these permissions for your mobile app. You can read exactly what those permissions are or check out, again, our document that explains why this is happening. We also, on the same modal, have linked the Microsoft Entra ID admin webpage so that you can go directly to Microsoft and figure out what this is. But what you'll need to do is click accept. And once you've done that, because this took and parsed your bundle ID, you are good to go with this app. What I want to call out is Microsoft is aware of this kind of defect, is even after you hit accept, it's going to continue to load like this. We have in a FAQ what to expect, why that's happening. And so when you look on this doc, you'll be able to see a bit. Yeah, here we go. Note, after granting permission, it's expected to get stuck in the form page for Microsoft. For details on what to expect, please follow this other document, specifically FAQ number 3. So that'll explain what's going on and teach you how to go into your Microsoft Entra ID portal and double check that this worked the way it should. So that's a quick InTune call out. I'm going to go ahead and click done. There's no way for ServiceNow to know that you've done this without asking for your InTune ID and InTune information. So we have just surfaced this alert and trust that, and we also have the exact same alert down here. It's going to persist throughout your build history. So we're just going to trust that you did this. If you forget, your end users will have to do this, every single one of them, and they're probably going to ask you why. So make sure to get this done ahead of time for private distribution process. Okay, I'm going to talk through each of the subsequent fields: end user license agreement, which is a EULA, and privacy policy. Only in mobile publishing apps can you specify your own EULA and privacy policy URLs. This will be shown under settings and legal on the mobile apps. It also gets baked into the mobile app itself. You can opt to use ServiceNow's EULA. You'll notice the fields go away, or put in your custom one. I'm going to opt to use ServiceNow's. That's almost always what our customers do, but we surface these in case somebody has some special use cases or special reasons. Deep links and universal links. Now you'll see that there's a pretty big paragraph here. This has been a sticking point for customers and some confusion, but deep links are used to navigate to another screen or location within the mobile app. The mobile app needs to anticipate what those locations are if it's somewhere that's not a screen on that instance. So we have pre-populated this instance URL table with all of the instances according to your company name, all of the ServiceNow instances you have. So if you ever want a push notification to go to your current instance, it'll work, or to go to some of your other instances, that will work. But if you want to add a deep link to an external URL, for example, you need to add that custom URL here. Later, after you have submitted, there's some additional steps for the iOS universal links. You'll need to download this AASA file after submission and install it on the instance list. So instead of add custom URL button, you'll see a download button once I submit. I'll show you. If you want more information, there's 2 learn more links, because I know that this can be a little confusing, but trust that we've largely done everything for you for Android, and for iOS, all you need to do is download the AASA file and install it on your instance. Login management. This is a exclusively mobile publishing feature on first time of app download, you can pre-populate the instance. So if you want a default app instance URL for your end users to leverage, we have some more information if you're using an EMM vendor like InTune, BlackBerry, or other MDM vendors. They can pre-populate the instance as well. So make sure not to use our ServiceNow options for that. Make sure to use your EMM vendor. But for everybody else, you can choose to pre-populate an instance with a default app instance URL and an optional nickname. So I'm not going to pre-populate my instance. I think that's going to be okay. And I'm going to move on to the iOS setup. So this is where the third-party setup starts becoming important, and this is why we have prerequisites. we need your Apple account information to publish your app on Apple Business Manager. We have a learn more link to tell you a little bit more about it. But your Apple account information is going to be found outside of ServiceNow, naturally. So because this was a prerequisite, you need an Apple Business Manager account. It generates the two mandatory fields that we have here. So that's our organization ID and organization name. Let me show you how to get that. So I'm going to split my screen a little bit here so we can see both this and Apple Business Manager. Okay. So Apple Business Manager is found by going to business.apple.com and logging in naturally. Let's see if we can get the split screen going here. All right. So within Apple Business Manager, we're looking for the org ID and the organization name. What you do is you go down into your account information and you'll hit preferences and you'll see organization settings or organization information rather. So under organization information, we have the name of the organization as well as the organization ID. So we're going to need both of these fields. Make sure to pick it up exactly the way you see it here. Don't pick up an extra space. Don't leave out a space. Don't leave out any dots, dashes, exclamation points, or anything like that. And also notice the DUNS number. That is not the number we're looking for. So make sure to grab your org ID. So I'm going to grab the org ID number here, paste it in my field, and then I'm going to grab the organization name and put it here. Okay, and that's all I need for Apple Business Manager. Now we're going to go into the iOS icon and splash screen. So this is where the branding happens. You've already determined in your app details what the name of your app is going to be, your custom branded name. Now you're going to be in the iOS icon and splash screen section determining your branding. So for private distribution, you'll have the option to use ServiceNow's icon and splash screen. For public distribution, we don't suggest that because then there'd just be multiple apps using our ServiceNow logo, and that could be really confusing and users could download the wrong ones. So that's not best practice, but on private distribution, it doesn't matter as much. I'm going to show you just how to use the branding itself. And so I'm going to go ahead and add artifacts. So for iOS, we have two different artifacts plus a splash screen color. The app icon itself, let's upload from my desktop. I have some assets. And what I'll notice is, let me exit out. What I'll notice is the app icon has some different requirements. It needs to be a PNG file. It needs to be 10 by 24 by 10 by 24 pixels. And it needs to have a solid background. There are some guidelines that we cannot validate, but Apple suggests is flattened layers and no rounded corners. So I'll go into my assets and find my 10 by 25 or 10 by 24. So there we go. You can see the icon. If you want to change the icon that you chose, just use this little delete button. Splash screen logo, I'm going to choose to make that look just like the icon itself. So the splash screen is what's loading while the instance login page is loading. But the splash screen needs to be 2048 by 2048. And it doesn't have any guidelines on no rounded corners or flattened layers, but it does need to have a transparent background. So let's pick this one. And what we immediately notice is that the branding I chose does not have a transparent background. So we're going to need to find one that does. Let's see if this one counts. Nope. All right, I have one more asset on my desktop. That could be the transparent one. Nope, that's code. Okay, so I have not adequately completed the prerequisites, so my splash screen logo doesn't have a transparent background. I'll have to go back to the drawing board on that one. So let me show you what else you would do though. And you'll notice in the review and submit, I'll have one one field that's not populated, but splash screen logo is actually optional. App icon for iOS is not. So that's I wanted to demonstrate that for you. So splash screen logo is optional, so I don't necessarily need to add one here. And if you don't, you'll see the ServiceNow splash screen, the kind of standard one that we use for our GA apps. And finally, the splash screen background color, if in the event your asset doesn't stretch the full diameter of your mobile phone, although if you follow the requirements, it will, you can pick a background color. So I'm going to pick something that's purple, kind of like the icon I picked. Yep, close enough. And now I need to add my internal iOS app testers. So because this is a private distribution, you own the Apple Business Manager listing. So ServiceNow cannot add any more testers after this initial step. So you will need to open up a ticket if you don't get in all of your testers now. So we highly suggest, and we listed that as one of the prerequisites, is to gather all this information ahead of time. So you don't need to worry about talking to ServiceNow and slowing down your process. So I'm going to add a tester here. Now it's really important to know that for Apple, this tester's email must be associated with an Apple ID. Now we don't have validation or anything for that. There's no way for ServiceNow to know, but you need to ensure that, and testers can also sign up after for an Apple ID account. And we say that here, this must match their Apple ID email address. So I added my Joe tester. Whoever you put in your contact info is automatically going to be a tester. So you only need to add your additional testers here. Okay, on to Android. So for Android, we have 3 Google account information, piece of information that we need rather than 2 with iOS. And this is, again, why we say you need a Google Firebase account. It generates the 3 fields, the Firebase app ID, API key, and project ID. Firebase is also used later to do push notifications. So you'll be able to see where and how. I'm going to demo where and how to get this information. So for the Google account information, I'm going to do a split screen here again so we can see what information we need and how to get it. So that's the App Store. Okay. So you are going to go to Firebase. Now, when you first log into console.firebase.google.com, you might see that your company already has several projects, prod and subprod, as ServiceNow does. I'm going to go into subprod because this is all testing for now. And I have 24 apps that exist. What we need to do in order to get our Firebase app ID, API key, and project ID is create a new app here on the Firebase console. So I'm going to hit this plus button and then choose what type of app it is. This is going to be an Android app. Make sure not to hit Apple Plus because this is specific to the Android setup. So add Firebase to your Android app. We need an Android package name. I mentioned that package name was back in the add app details. So you can see here, package name for Android. So I'm going to take this and copy it. You can also use the copy button right here, added to clipboard. So back to Android. Okay, so here's my package name, demo1.fulfiller. My app name was demo1. We don't need the debugging signing certificate. That's optional, and ServiceNow has streamlined that. Then we're going to register the app. And in the next step, we'll start seeing, perfect. We do not need to do the download and config file for now. We don't need the Firebase SDK information for now. What we do need is to go to the console. Now that I have an app set up, I'm going to go to my list of apps, click here, and we have Now Demo. I'm going to hit the I so that my Now Demo information is here on the dashboard. And I'm also going to hit the gear to go to my project settings. And this is where I'm going to find the mandatory pieces of information. So first we have the Firebase app ID. So you'll see here we have a couple different numbers. None of those say Firebase. If I scroll down and select my app again, now demo, you can see we have the app ID. So I'm going to take this app ID. App IDs, Firebase app IDs always have :Android : in them. So that's a good way to make sure you're picking up the right number. And we also have validation here in the app. So let's say I forgot :Android : you'll see that it automatically picks up that we are missing some fields here. So let me delete that and pick this back up. Okay, this one has :Android : so we're good to go. Now we need a Firebase API key. So this is back up here. It's called the web API key, what we see here. This Firebase provisioned API key is for use for web apps. So we're going to grab this API key. Firebase API key also helps with push notifications. And then the project ID. You'll notice there's a project number and a project ID and a project name. Only grab the project ID. We do not have validation because these can look anyway. So just make sure you see project ID here and you can see that it's a Firebase project. Okay, those are all of the pieces of information we need from Google. So again, I'm told you the prerequisites here for the Firebase account. We've entered in all this information, and which will also enable push notifications. Okay. Next thing we have on the mobile publishing form is going to be opt-in to trust user added certificate authority. So this Boolean down here. We say that by default, apps that target API level 24.0 do not honor user supplied certificate authorities unless the app explicitly opts in. If you do not opt into trust user added certificates, then it's only company added certificates. That's typically what we see our customers do. But adding user added certificates or trusting user added certificates is just some customizations for your specific use cases. I'm going to go ahead and not do that. I'm going to try and build the most secure app possible. And I'll move on to the Android icons and splash screen. Now, again, because of private distribution, you could choose to use ServiceNow's icon and splash screen, but I'm going to show you the Android branding. So there are a few more pieces of branding. There's the adaptive icon foreground, adaptive icon background, notification icon, splash screen logo. So adaptive icon foreground is whenever a user is on their phone and want to move their apps around, if they hold their apps and the apps start wiggling, that is the adaptive icon foreground, what you see in that motion. If your adaptive icon background looks different, then you'll see the adaptive icon foreground move on top of the adaptive icon background. Notification icon is what the user will see if there are any notifications like push notifications shown or login notifications. Anything on their lock screen, this will be the icon that's shown if in the event you want it to be different than the standard icons. And then the splash screen, what's shown while the mobile app is loading after being downloaded. So these also have different requirements. The adaptive icon foreground is 2048 by 2048. This one also needs a transparent background. So we ran into those issues before. I'm going to go to the adaptive icon background, and you can see that this one needs a solid background. So I'm good to go. I can use my assets. And I think this one was 2048, right? Yep. Okay, good. They suggest no text, no graphics, and rounded corners. So these are guidelines by Apple. I suggest you follow them. We're going to end up using the ServiceNow branding for this one. Notification icon, transparent or solid background. They also suggest no text and no rounded corners. We've seen customers use icons like their standard logos for this and not have a problem. And then splash screen logo, which works just the same as the Apple one. Finally, the splash screen background color. Again, if the splash screen logo doesn't stretch fully, you can choose what the color might be. There we go. But I'm going to end up using ServiceNow's icon and splash screens just to show the two different options. Okay, I'm going to hit next. And now in this review step, we're going to have everything that we have populated. I'm going to go ahead and pull back up my right panel. This is the same FAQs and some additional links for help if you need it. But we have successfully populated all the information here. This big scary yellow box, we've already reviewed permissions and accepted it, so we're good to go. All of the other fields are populated accordingly. And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. Now, it might take a second to connect to the ServiceNow store. If you see it loading perpetually after like 10 minutes, then you might have a problem with your instance, but it does take a little bit of time to submit this app. So you're just going to go ahead and give it a second and wait. Okay. And the submission has completed here. We have the 2 to 4 weeks. Again, this is private, so soon you'll see this guidance change to our updated guidance that I showed you for our timelines here. So you'll start seeing this information as well. But we have our confirmation. I'm going to hit done. And what we'll see is our demo 1 app is now build in progress. This is what takes a few weeks sometimes, especially because this is both iOS and Android. It might take more than a day or two. And then we also have this purple banner up here, which is to say you have some InTune changes needed. So if you never finished your consent flow there, we surface that same information, the same review permissions link, and the same learn more link. So you can find that here. And again, once you get this app is ready for test, you'll be able to scroll down into the universal links section, and you'll be able to hit this download button. I'll talk more about testing. But next, let me very quickly bring you through the public app process. So earlier it was private. This one's going to be public. The steps to submission are largely the same, so I'm going to breeze through those. But then you'll start seeing some differences in the files that get generated. So, but the prerequisites are largely the same. We definitely need your Google Firebase account information, and some of the Apple setup comes a little bit later. So and I'm not going to submit this one just so I can very quickly get some of this information on here. This app type's going to be now mobile because we did agent before. We're going to do a public distribution. We did private before, so this is now public. What you'll see when I click this is we have some terms and conditions. This is to call out that the distribution of app is on the customer to manage both the Apple and Google third-party sites. You must apply your own code signing certificate to your mobile app submission. So this is working through the XC archive document you'll receive for iOS. You must include your own EULA and privacy policy and disclaim any and all liability of ServiceNow. So you can either decline or accept. If you decline, you're going to need to choose private distribution. If I accept, I can move forward. And for this operating system, I'm just going to show let's just do iOS only, just so it's a little faster. Actually, let's show both. I'm going to show you everything. Okay. So for our public distribution process, we only need the short name. I've already used demo 1. So now I'm going to use demo 2. You can see my package name here is a public app called demo 2, and this one's now a requester rather than a fulfiller. This is our now mobile app. I'm going to choose not to opt into the MAM, but you can see the fields are all the same. If I were to opt into InTune, for public distribution, the steps are a little bit different. I cannot review permissions immediately. This is, and we call it out here. After you submit this public iOS build, it must be registered in your Microsoft tenant intra-admin portal. There's going to be an updated bundle ID. So we have a bundle ID here, but this is going to be updated after you upload the XC archive signing and upload it to the Apple App Store Connect. So there's more information. It's that same document for learning more and what and why you're doing. So I'm going to opt out of MAM. We highly suggest for public distribution, you use your own EULA. So https://ownEULA.com. Privacy policy is the same. You need to use your own privacy policy. So this could be ownprivacypolicy.com. Obviously, I'm using demo information right now. You would need to populate this truly. Deep links and universal links. I don't have any custom URLs configured yet. So let's go ahead and do one. Let's say I know I'm going to link out to google.com. Go ahead and add that. Now it's on our table. Login management, pre-populate instance. Again, I can select my instance here. So let's say you're using your current instance. Take everything all the way through ServiceNow.com. You do not need /now/mobile, anything to that effect. So mobile.com, take off that /, and then nickname is Mobile Publishing. Okay, for iOS, we'll have the same branding, the app icon, splash screen logo, splash screen color. Because this is my testing instance, you'll see you can still use the ServiceNow icons. Again, we do not suggest doing this for public distribution because it'll just be very, very confusing. If everyone started to do that, how would your end users know what app to choose? I'm going to move through the optional splash screen logo and splash screen background color. That's not important to me. And then we have our same Google account information. Now you notice that for iOS, we didn't ask you anything about your Apple Connect or your Apple Business Manager. That's because for public distribution, you own the App Store listings. You're going to take the XC archive file, sign it, and upload it to Apple App Store. So we don't need any information. For Google, though, we do. We still need those same Firebase App ID, API key, and project ID. So just as quickly, I'm going to go not to my Apple Business Manager, but to my Firebase project. I've clicked into apps. I'm on my Demo 1 instance. You'll be able to see your project ID or Demo 1 app. My Now Demo app, and it's the same information. So app ID has :Android:. My Firebase API key. Let's pull this over here. Firebase API key is up a little higher under web API key, under your project. And then my project ID. So project ID. For this one, I am, just for sake of difference, I am going to opt into the Trust User Certificate Authorities. You'll notice that there's some conditions upon doing so. You are affirmatively confirming that you have the authority to make this request and you accept the responsibility, but also the consequences of using a user added certificate. So I'm going to go ahead and accept. If I decline, that Boolean gets turned again. So we're going to go ahead and accept. For Android, I'm having my adaptive icon. We'll pick that. We have notification, splash screen logo. All these are optional. So I'm going to move through and then review and submit. So I'm not going to submit this one just because I had never actually, I never moved through and submitted I never accepted my ready for test, my current Now Mobile app. So I won't be able to submit this one. So I'm not going to do so right now. But what I want to show you now is, let's go ahead and exit. So what I want to show you now is you see the build in progress. This is the private build that we built together, Demo 1, rather than Demo 2 that we just built for public. You can see this build is in progress. Now, after a few days or a few weeks, the build will become ready for test. Let me show you what that looks like. So we have our Now Mobile app, which is ready for test. If I open that up, this is where you'll start seeing on this kind of banner area up here, you'll see your Android testing file. Now, what I called out and what you might have noticed is the files that you're testing for Android differ between private and public distribution. One's an APK and one's an AAB. So let me just quickly explain the difference. So an AAB is a bundle file, where an APK, an Android package, is an Android package file. So AABs, which are given to you for public distribution, get uploaded to Google Play and then parsed out as APKs to the individual users via your distribution method, either putting it on the Google Play Store, APKs are what get downloaded, or manually uploading an APK on an Android emulator or on your computer in order to test. So AAB just contains a lot of APK files. And due to Google's regulations, we deliver APKs for private and AABs for public. Updating your app client version. ServiceNow, the call out here, ServiceNow releases new client versions monthly. So customers need to submit the request form again with all the same information in order to receive an app update. I'll explain the asterisk. So customers, usually what we see is you update your app every quarter or every 6 months to coincide with the ServiceNow family versions. Most customers don't update monthly with our client updates, but you are absolutely welcome to. Second bullet point, branded iOS apps must be updated every year, 11 to 12 months to be safe, as the push notification certificate file, the .ipa file, is only valid for 13 months. So we say update at month 11 just to give yourself 60 days to stand everything up. 12 months, you'll still be fine. But if on the 13th month you don't finish by the last day of that 13th month, your users will not receive push notifications on their iOS app. The easiest way to update your app's client version is to use this duplicate button. So customers should use our convenient duplicate button to initiate app requests. And the app requests usually is just all the exact same information. So that's what this duplicate button does. It takes everything in your request details and copies it. You can change your requester contact info. So if your mobile admin has changed, feel free to update that contact information, and the emails we send out will then go to them. You can actually update your app icons as well and your iOS testers, but you cannot update anything else. If you update any other field, which is why we say best practice, update nothing. But if you update any other field, it'll become a new app that your users will have to download. You'll have to add it to the app stores and update the listings. So do not change anything other than contact info and testers, app icons if you must. So really quickly, I'm going to show you the duplication flow. So I'm going to go back to mobile publishing. I've been logged out. Here we go. So for example, let's say my ChronoTrack app, I've already completed all the testing. I hit approve, but now I want to update the client version. So I last requested this on August 29th. Let's say a new version has come out on September 10th. I want to duplicate this app request. And you'll notice all of the information on review and submit, everything is already populated. You could only hit submit and you're fully finished with updating your client version. Again, you'll need to wait a few days to a few weeks and go through some additional testing if you haven't changed your branding, if you haven't changed your push notifications, if you haven't changed your pre-login information, then there's very little to test except just to make sure the app works. So that's updating your app client version. And with that, I am finished with Mobile Publishing 101. And again, if you want to dive into Mobile Publishing 201, what we highly suggest is you go to our communities page where we have the Mobile Publishing technical FAQs. That's linked directly in the form because theoretically that's when you need it. But we have our technical FAQs, form submission and beyond, that explains all the different fields. If this video isn't sufficient, it asks about how long and what I can update when, next steps, and some common issues that people are seeing. So this technical FAQ will be really important as you're going through the request and the test and submission process. But until then, I hope that this getting started video and Mobile Publishing 101 was helpful, and happy branding. Thank you very much.